It's time to close this morning with a final discussion focusing on the practical intersection between space and defense, enabling defense readiness, space connectivity, ground architecture, and mission data access. And once again, I'm pleased to invite to the stage the moderator for this session, Head of the Defense, Space and Security Program at IAI, Mr. Alessandro Marrone. Alessandro.
Thank you. As said, I'm the head of Defense, Security and Space Program at IAI, which does not stand for Israeli Aerospace Industries, but for Institute of International Affairs, Italian think tank based in Rome, and the leading Italian think tank coping with space. We are a scientific partner of this conference since several years, so I'm particularly proud to be again here to moderate this panel. And without further ado, I'm glad to call on stage our great lineup of speakers. So Laurent Jaffart, Director of Connectivity and Secure Communication, European Space Agency. Good morning. Ekaterini Kavvada, Director for Secure and Connected Space, DG DEFIS, European Commission. Welcome again, Ekaterini. Nicolas Lefort, Head of New Markets, MBDA. Hi, Nicolas. Augusto Caramagno, Director of Strategy, Cooperation and Growth at Indra Space. Here we are. Welcome. And Sylvain, Executive Vice President, Space, Sopra Steria. Welcome, Sylvain. So, we flexibly adjusted to the, let me come closer, to the change of schedule this morning. There are many issues on the table, several speakers on stage, and therefore, without further ado, I'm going to start with the first round of questions. Each speaker will have 4 minutes for his answer, and let's be as timely as R2 or even more. So, Mr. Jaffart, Health Observation Government Service has been one of the most important results of ESA ministerial meeting last November. The question is, in which ways is going to be relevant for the readiness of European armed forces?
Thank you very much. The Earth Observation Governmental Services will be an EU program, and we started at the ministerial in November with the European Resilience from Space program with 3 components, and in particular, an Earth observation one. The question of readiness is really how to be prepared, how to have a system approach where you have reliable communications, secured communication, a backbone of connectivity. From the Earth observation side, access to persistent and high-resolution data that allows for early detection, that allows to provide reliable assessment, and that will basically allow for decision makers to take actions when needed to escalate. So when we look at the ERS, and in particular the Earth Observation Program, we wanted to generate independent intelligence assessment. We wanted to generate validated external information so that we can support the sovereignty of our member states. We are looking at a dual-use system. We are looking at a system which is designed to answer both civil security and defense needs. The target is to be prepared for the EOGS program to help the Commission when it comes to accelerating the implementation by doing 2 things. First, pre-development, de-risking technology, and second, finalizing a system architecture. In parallel, we launched the development of clusters so that member states would be able to work together and generate capabilities answering their own needs, but also capabilities that could be pooled and shared amongst the coalitions of willing member states. So we're looking at how to pool assets, how to increase the pool of data, and how to reduce the response time. We have a system approach combining Earth observation navigation, and reliable connectivity. This system approach is basically a system of systems that will answer the needs of this space shield that have been voiced by the Secretary previously. It is important to know and to realize that it's only by working together, by avoiding fragmentation, that Europe will stand together in its readiness to face whatever threats. I think this concludes my answer.
Thank you. Now, very, very interesting also to understand exactly the interplay between Earth observation, government service, European resilience from space, and the phase you mentioned about de-risking a system architecture. From my previous experience on defense and EU defense, pooling and sharing does not work that well. So let's hope that space that has a better track record than defense in terms of cooperation and integration will deliver. Mrs. Kavvada, IRIS² promises to bring secure connectivity, so one of the pillars of the shield, to institutional users, including the armed forces. So how and where do you see the program progressing in the next, let's say, 5-8 years?
Thank you very much. Normally, when I have Laurent next to me, we are talking only for IRIS. So it's the very first time that he started with the Earth observation and EOGS. But coming back to IRIS², it's more than a promise. If it was just a promise to deliver IRIS², my life and Laurent's life could be much easier. It's an obligation stemming from the law. So IRIS² should be there and should be there in a timely manner and with the performances as agreed with the member states. So for the next 3 to 8 years, you said, I will say for the next day as well, we need, first of all, to deliver the system. Deliver is the key word, not only for the European Commission, but also for the members of the consortium, being the satellite operators or the core team members, that they will be called to build that system and operate it. And then, as the system is designed in order to support governmental uses and defense, we have to set it openly. This is the Galileo PRS approach. Then we have to work with member states, defense communities, in order to agree together on the way that the system will be operational, the famous CONOPS, the user terminal, all these nice procedures that they have to be discussed and decided with the proper communities. But among all this stuff, for us, responsible for the program, there is something very important on which we have to pay attention. If we want to serve the military communities, then we have to build confidence and trust. They don't want systems that they will come too late or they will not be able to use them in the way that they want. So, number one, we need to deliver the system before the end of this decade. We are living in Europe. We have a war, I will not say next to us, but within Europe, and a number of other geopolitical tectonic changes. So we have to help our member states and the defense communities. Number two, it should be for free. People, they are afraid that if they use IRIS, they might be called to pay for. And this is not the truth. Number three, the coverage. We need to cover Europe as first priority and the rest of the world progressively. Number four, we have to guarantee, and this is very important for the military communities, their access to the share of the bandwidth that each and every member state will have. And in case of crisis, be in a position, and this is the case of IRIS, to take over the full capacity of the system in order to serve the needs of our defense communities and our security. Then, I think it's number 5, we need to guarantee, if you want, I will say anonymity, but my people, they used to say that we have to be blind and agnostic vis-à-vis the identity and the location of the users. It's only the member states that they will have, in a very sovereign way, the right to decide how to use it, with whom, without the operator or the European Commission or another user could have access to this information. So agnostic, 100%. And this is the case of Galileo PRS, and this is something that will make the program and the system attractive to the defense communities. So secure is my last point. For a defense user to use a system, this should be secure by design and resistant to any aggressive attack. This is what we want to do. This is where we need to work with the defense communities. This is a work that should take place with them, and not only in Brussels. It's not a program which should take place in Brussels, but everywhere in the 27 member states. We need to discuss, and we need to be 100% aligned to their needs. And as my commissioner said, IRIS is something important, but we don't have to forget the GovSatcom, which is already there based on existing capacity. And I think that this pooling and sharing, in the way that it will be demonstrated through the GovSatcom, will pave the way with a number of pooling and sharing approaches, even on the OGS, which even for the European Commission is the way forward. We have to capitalize on national investment, and we have to use them in a very solidarity approach for the interest of the 27 member states.
Thank you. Thank you, Ekaterini. Thank you, Ekaterini, also because it seems to me that Europe is somehow at the crossroads, similar to when it decided to launch Galileo and Copernicus, this time on secure connectivity. But this time, let's bring the military in from the beginning clearly and with ownership. So let's learn from the lessons of 25 years ago, because the world has changed and Europe has changed as well.
By that time, it was a great taboo. For that time, I was not allowed to even pronounce the word defense. We use as example the Carabinieri, the Italian Carabinieri, in order to say that Galileo could serve national and security interests, but we are not there.
That's
hopefully for everyone.
We have a long track record or journey through dual use, civil security, governmental users, institutional users. So let's be clear. This is for defense, and therefore defense should be on board from the beginning. Mr. Lefort, as working in a pan-European company at MBDA, you are used to work across nations and institutions. So the question is, how can interoperability can be improved across national systems, EU initiatives, and NATO frameworks?
So I'm going to be very cheeky here. In order to have interoperability, we first have to buy European. So MBDA, we provide missile systems and weapon systems that protect the heart of sovereignty in Europe, and we do it both at national level, especially in France, because we're responsible for the air component of the nuclear deterrence. And at the same time, we produce world-class missiles in cooperation at European level. You might have heard of Scalp, Storm Shadow, Aster, Meteor. These are all cooperation programs that we can be proud of as European because they do their job. Now, if we have to talk about interoperability, I think it's a big word and it's not a technical word. I think it's a governance problem. And by governance, I think that here we have an incredible opportunity, given the scale of the investment at European level, to start building European architectures. This will save us money as a whole, and it will allow us to have the scale we need to operate worldwide. Now, at MBDA, we have experience integrating missile systems, sensors, and of course, integrating C2 architectures that are diverse. So we are a mosaic in Europe, and we have to unify. We can do that, no problem. But we have to buy European first. Second, I think it's the elephant in the room is standards and NATO. NATO has been an incredible standard office for Europe, and I think that here we need to stop this and start having Europe as a standard setter. We should not import standards anymore, or not all of them at least, and ensure that interoperability is compatible with our sovereignty. And for us industrials, it's a matter of competitiveness. I think third is that today interoperability is not at Harvard level, is software and data. And again, here I think that when we say data models, AI-enabled battle management, digital twins, cloud or combat clouds, here we have to have European solutions if we want to be performing. Of course, we need to control those. And when we talk about software, we're dwarfed by the power of the software industry in the US. So here we have to make sure that Europe is investing not only in the infrastructure, but also on the control and IP of those softwares that will be the middleware of our interoperability. And last but not least, I think, and this is what makes the wealth of cooperation in a company like MBDA, I think that interoperability is also cultural and organizational. And here we have incredible experience at MBDA with integrating multinational engineering teams, with addressing multinational cooperation contracts with the European Commission, with OCA. And so we are living proof that interoperability and cooperation are a success story. So if we wanted to conclude on this, I think that interoperability doesn't mean dependency to the US particularly. So we have to be interoperable with NATO, but we have to be sovereign. And MBDA, we are about sovereignty. And of course, standard setting. Europe has done an incredible work on consumer markets to set the right standards for consumers to enjoy the best performing products and save a lot of cost. Why don't we do that in defense? Of course, it will need some to step up in terms of skills, because standard setting is a huge job and it's costly. But I think the only scale to do that is European. And of course, I will end up with software sovereignty. We need to control both the investment and the narrative. Defense is also about the people pulling the trigger when it's needed. And if we don't control the narrative there, we will have a problem.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicolas, for many ambitious and frank points, including on standard setting as a policy instrument, as a political instrument. And also, thank you for stressing the cultural and organizational aspects, because sometimes they are overlooked in comparison with the technology ones. Mr. Caramagno, from industrial perspective, what would you suggest to European institutions working on secure connectivity?
Yeah, actually, I will, it was not prepared, but I will reuse some topic mentioned by my previous colleague, by Nicolas. What we suggest is to capitalize on what Europe has been doing very well. So people like me that have been working in this sector for already a couple of decades, we've been seeing the growth of Europe in navigation and depth observation, I would say. So after GPS, it was difficult to build something better than GPS. but Europe managed. In Earth observation, likewise, I think Europe is not second to anyone else. Now the challenge is to be as good as, I don't know if we can be as good as, but at least to be sovereign in connectivity. In connectivity, the giant or the elephant in the room is a very well-known US system, and it's not easy to be as good as Starlink or Starshield. So what can we do? We can do something like we did in Galileo. In Galileo, Europe defined a signaling space. The signaling space was meant to serve diverse users, open service, safety of life service in the beginning, and now you see the evolution of the service which are being delivered by Galileo. Then in the second generation, we added intersatellite links, and with the intersatellite links, Galileo will deliver sub-centimeter accuracy to the user. So we can do something similar in connectivity. In connectivity, what we might do is to define a standard, to define a waveform, a secure and protected European waveform that the different players can leverage on to develop standard terminals. So today there is not defined European waveform. We know that we have the 5G, but the 5G is a very wide framework. So what we probably need is assurance of spectrum availability and a common multi-frequency and multi-orbit waveforms, secure waveforms, that everybody can develop for. I think these 2 points, spectrum availability and European standard secure waveform, are key for the success of connectivity.
Thank you very much, Augusto, for very, very concrete points, very technical points, and thanks also for making them understandable to non-engineered people. Mr. Duan, while space systems often receive most of the attention, previous keynote speaker mentioned several times satellites, ground architectures and data access are critical too for operational effectiveness. So the question is, how can Europe strengthen its ground segment and data access framework to ensure reliability, responsiveness, and security?
Thanks, Alessandro, for highlighting a key part of the space system, which is ground segment and data access. Indeed, ground segment, which are covering from mission control to data processing and data access, are even more critical in the current context where our space programs are at European and national level must be interconnected to answer the big challenges that were mentioned before for the resilience from space program and the European Space Shield. So we need, as mentioned also, interoperability. That means multi-domain, multi-mission ground segment capable of consolidating user requests from across Europe and merging data from different sensors. For operational effectiveness of this interoperable ground segment, it has to be designed as a system of systems and embarking advanced algorithm and intelligence for the optimization at the program level, but also at the multi-mission level. To ensure reliability, responsiveness, and security of this hierarchy of systems, I believe we must focus on 3 complementary pillars: architectures, standards, and reuse. So let's talk about architectures, I would say, which is the skeleton. We must embrace the next generation ground segment. This means building systems that are secured by design, cloud native, fully virtualized. For performance of this system can be fully distributed, close to users, and also can combine cloud and edge computing to limit bandwidth. Then they provide faster service orchestration, low bandwidth, and agility for our mission operation. Second, standardization. It represents the nervous system. Standards are key for interoperability. Space comes with its dedicated standards, the ECSS, ECSDS, but we have to look beyond our borders and use battlefield-proven standards in other domains. As example, in pure digital domain, there are a lot of existing standards that are used by the world's largest industries. We're talking about de facto standards like Open API, Stack, Kubernetes, Kafka. At a time where new regulation defined, such as the EU Space Act, we will be more effective if we manage to establish this kind of bridge. For example, in the resilience pillar of the space that concerns cybersecurity. Zero trust best practice that is used in cloud computing can be reused here. Finally, as time is of the essence, we need reuse. This is the muscles. Sovereign military space capabilities need to be built up quickly, which means leveraging products, capability, and services that already exist in the market. A modular, agile, federated approach is important to maximize the reuse of solutions which are present in our European market. It reinforces the whole supply chain to go faster. In my company, Sopra Steria, combining the 60,000 people of a digital company with advanced experts in space algorithm, we come already with solutions to answer to these three pillars. We promote next generation ground segment with cloud native secured by design. We bring ideas for a pragmatic approach for EU Space Act. And through our modular approach, we are federating data actors, for example, in space surveillance, or a nice project we're doing for European Space Agency with virtual constellation, where we demonstrate pooling and sharing with existing sensors coming from different existing constellation and satellite providers. Thanks.
Thanks, Sylvain. A very holistic view with next generation ground system, battlefield-proven standards, and also this interesting element of reuse solutions to fasten the process. Let's now dive deep into some of the issues you already tackled with a second round of questions. Again, 4 minutes per answer. Let's use the same order. So, Laurent, secure and resilient connectivity, as it has been said many times, has become a backbone capability for military operations. So the question is how Europe should prioritize the investments to support mission-critical communication and decision-making.
So I think the very, very first priority is service readiness. We need to be ready to offer secured, accredited connectivity to the users. We need to have what I would call a backbone of communication to reduce the time between the sensor to the effector. We need to get close to real time as an ambition. So this means that we need to prioritize early service delivery. We need to look at defense-grade security. We need to look at access control. We need to have clear interfaces between existing military networks and future networks. We need interoperability. This was mentioned several times by different speakers. This interoperability needs to be embedded from the beginning, especially for all the different projects that are starting in Europe, I would say mushrooming in Europe. And we need to avoid this fragmentation. We need to work on increment services. We need to look at what we call versioning. So when we look at all of these requirements at ESA, together with the member states, together with the European Commission, we launched an initiative called LOLEO for IRIS². And under LOLEO, we are trying to demonstrate technologies. This is called a sandbox. These are technologies which are demonstrated for later insertion into the system. And we're looking at pre-operational services. And these pre-operational services is the demonstration of new services. We could look at Internet of Things. We could look at direct-to-device for governmental purposes. We could look at radio frequency monitoring for interferences. We could look at Earth observations, and that makes a link with the previous question on resilience from space.
Thanks. Thanks, Laurent. Time is of essence, so let me move straight to Ekaterini. We exchanged before on the changes of wording and conversation on space and defense. So relations between institutional actors have evolved significantly over the last very few years. So the question is, how do you see these relations among stakeholders evolving in the next future?
Rather than relations, I think that we have to think on governance. It goes really beyond the pure relations, because we all will be called to work towards the same objective. And if I start, first of all, from the European institutional actors, I have to say now, these days, the landscape is rather stabilized, the roles are clear, and the responsibilities as well, between the European Commission, responsible for the program delivery, the European Space Agency, responsible for the design, the architect, as we used to call ESA, and responsible for IRIS for the validation of the hard gov system, which is really important. We rely on European Space Agency mandate in all programs, and USPA for security from an accreditation point of view and operation of the systems and hard gov service provision. It was not so easy, but I think today the three of us, we know what we have to do, and we have things to do, respect our mandate, and avoid the so-called cannibalization. This is very important. Then, if we, and as we address the point, if space is relevant to the defense, and this is not with question mark, we need to enlarge the governance vis-à-vis other actors. EDA, we have heard, SATSEN, but let me focus also to the member states per se. We need to establish a governance. We are talking about interoperability, and as you rightly said, interoperability requires a governance, will never come as such. And whenever we go ahead in defense with our member states, then we have to take into account two major principles. The principle number one is that defense by far relies with member states, is member states' prerogative. The European Commission will not dictate to the member states what they have to do. They are sovereign countries. They know which are the risks, and they know how and what they have to do in order to face the threats. And this is a red line that everybody should respect. The second pillar is that in the space field already we have two systems, not programs, already systems, Galileo and Copernicus, that they exist and that they serve member states. PRS is there for 27 member states, and Copernicus as well, plus the evolution of Copernicus, and IRIS in the making. So we need, and member states, they need to think on the capitalization of this investment in the best way. We don't have to ignore, and we don't have to duplicate these existing systems. And this will make also the governance and how we will avoid fragmentation and how we will bring member states' assets and union assets in full harmony. Of course, member states, they will continue to have their assets, and this is the goal. And union will continue to add, and this is the objective and the ambition. But the best is not to go in silo, to promote the interoperability, at the end of the day, to have a sum up rather than different non-interoperable and non-compatible systems. So this is, in an essence, the way that we see the governance in the future in a number of activities. And the first and the last word will remain with the member states in terms of needs, in terms of design, in terms of trade-offs, in terms of implementation.
Thank you, Ekaterini. Crystal clear from relations to governance, including Ministry of Defense in the governance, if I may summarize like this. Nicolas, integrated air missile defense is, of course, a crucial component of Europe's military readiness vis-à-vis the Russian threat. So let's have a focus on the role that secure connectivity plays in integrated air missile defense.
Well, thank you for the question, because integrated air and missile defense is already a doctrine that is diverse between European countries. So it's usually based out of sensors and interceptors or effectors. But very fundamentally, AMD is a question of how do I get the data I need the fastest I can to the point where somebody can pull the trigger. So it's a data integration problem. So for that, we're not talking over the vast lands of Europe about a system. We're talking about a systems of systems, and this is forcing us, a missile provider like MBDA, to think integrating our effectors into a systems of systems. So this will not be only the work of MBDA, but the work of the Airbuses, Leonardos, Thales, all of them together with us. But the thing is, it has to work. Performance is at stake. It's a life or death situation here because the threat is real and it's so diverse today. So AIMD is of course, complexity of the systems of systems, but the threat here needs to be tackled at very tactical level, let's say against UAVs, drones, but also the high end with anti-ballistic, anti-hypersonic missiles, and this is what we're working on too. So how do you integrate all this onto the same C2 architectures? It is a challenge, but we have to do it. Now, AIMD is also about multi-domain integration, air, sea, land, but also space, of course, and cyber. Because it's not only about the speed of getting the data, it's about the security and having the accurate data that allows you to pull the trigger. And this is of utmost importance, and I think here what has been described by Mr. Jaffart and Ms. Kavvada, going the right way, is how do we get that into service as soon as we can. Now, if we keep talking about the threat, there is a threat on that connectivity, and there will be a threat on that connectivity. This is part of the Russian doctrine, for example. What they target first is connectivity by electronic warfare, by even action in space, jamming, so you name it. So here, of course, we're a little bit more in our realm of MBDA because we're preparing also a series of concepts and series of capabilities to be able to act in space and target enemy space assets. So this is a work that we're doing with the French Space Command, and we're going to space 2027 with the Tutatis demonstration. So this is a little aparté to talk about the resilience, and that resilience is not only distributed architectures, is also having the possibility to act in space. So now, I think that as a conclusion, I would like to say that secure connectivity is a strategic autonomy issue. The Ukraine case, my colleague said it, it's Starlink. We need to turn it into OneWeb, IRIS², and whatever constellation that we're pushing as Europeans. This is very important for us. On that note, let's not forget that air defense, integrated air and missile defense is the shield, but we need to have a sword. And the sword needs to be connected too. So the strike missiles need to be connected. And here we're talking at MBDA about missiles that have the technology of a 5th generation fighter jet in a tube that is only a few centimeters diameter over a few meters. So we don't have much space, so we need to be clever about how do we integrate this connectivity in our products.
Thank you. Very, very interesting. Thank you also for making explicit the threat to the connectivity, which surely will be part of the requirements of the armed forces interested in the EU programs. And this gives me also a lead for the next question to Augusto, who, I mean, you had a broad professional experience in different space companies. So from your broader perspective, how the provision of space services, including secure connectivity, has changed, is changed, and will change in the next few years?
So how the provision of service will change?
To the armed forces,
Well, good question. So from, actually, as you said, I had the pleasure to work for different companies. In the company which I'm now, which is Indra, is a multi-domain company. So today, our mandate is to offer to the armed forces the way to connect the different domains, and I also include space as a domain to be connected. So if I look at the land, air, sea, cyber, and space, these 5 domains needs connectivity. So a way to see the future RE² system, I would say it's like a motorway with 3 lanes. So you have the low LEO, the high LEO, and the MEO. So there are 3 lanes. And these lanes, so these shells, they are connected through intersatellite link. And the intersatellite link is a kind of a technical fabric which is connecting the different shells. So if I look at this fantastic system that will be up and flying eventually incrementally, will not be all of a sudden, will be incremental deployment of the system, then we have to think about how the different domains can be connected. So as in the Space Commander panel someone said, I think it was the Italian said, we don't have to think about space as a system which connects the system below. In a combat cloud mentality, any node of the system shall support the others. So eventually I could get a battleship which is helping the satellite, because in the satellite you have limited resources. You cannot do on a satellite what you can do on ground. So storage and processing of the information is not as easy in a battleship than in a satellite. So if I actually use this 3 shell system with the intersatellite link, which are connected at different layer, maybe the rightmost lane will be the slowest lane, but a lot of traffic can go through the slow lane, and the high priority lane can be used by emergency or for higher speed. So the way I see the provisional service to the armed forces is to effectively implement this fluid distribution of the resources, so connectivity, storage, and processing of the information, using the different node speciality, which can be ubiquitous positioning for space and high power computing for ground nodes. So we have to think about the combat cloud as an interconnected system with resources distributed across all the system, and make the information available wherever needed, using all the other layers, so all the domains as support to the node which is needed the information and is needed the resources.
Thank you.
I don't know if I made it clear, to be honest. I think it was a bit complex.
It's complex, but it's also enough clear. So,
half clear.
Enough clear, and more importantly, it's very pragmatic. Again, very pragmatic and very, very concrete. Sylvain, I mean, let me close with a little bit more broad question, if I may. Europe has to balance different needs. In your view, how can we balance the need for rapid innovation and flexibility, which is a very, structurally interlinked with the data management, since it's very fast-paced innovation, with the word mentioned several times, sovereignty, security, trusted requirements.
Yes, indeed, as said several times during the conference, we need the system not in 10 years, but at least tomorrow, next year, in the next 2 years. So we need to go fast. Going fast, we can reuse technologies, we can have reuse flight-proven system, but we need systems that would last more than 10, 20 years. So we don't want obsolete technologies in the systems that will cost more. So we need to embark new technologies and combine innovation, modern architectures with flight-proven systems. In the digital transformations that we do every day, that's what we call cross-fertilization. The objective is to reuse technologies that are used, new technologies that are used in other domains. So we do not reinvent the wheel. That's what we do in our transverse offer is through AI. So we talk a lot about AI everywhere. So there are good practices, best practices done in AI in other domains. Let's use them in space. Cybersecurity also is transverse, cloud, quantum, used everywhere. So we in my company, we do reinforce this cross-fertilization also in the defense, space, and security domains that are now gathered together in the vertical, and then we can provide dual-use system important for our space domain. Second aspect I want to highlight is the fact that we need trustful flexibility built on top of this new architectural concept, technologies, standards. In these modern architectures, we find a lot of open source. Open source is predominant in software. Open source are very good for transparency and trust because every industry, European agency can audit every line of code. It allows rapid innovation. Just to mention, 70% to 90% of software today is based on open source components. They bring interoperability because they bring the capacity to have a common language open to everybody that can every European country can have a look at. But it's not magic. Open source comes with vulnerabilities. In this context, it's important to have strict rules. That's what we implement in my company to have traceability, security on every component, either open source or proprietary components that we integrate in the architectures. So that's why we are building what we call the landscape of open source and proprietary components that can be rapidly adapted and changed if they are obsolete to the current environment.
Thank you. Thank you, Sylvain. And me, as the last man standing between you and the deserved lunch after a very packed agenda in the morning, I won't make any conclusion. So let me just thank the speakers for your thought-provoking points and the enduring audience in the room for your attention and interest in the conversation. Please join me in a round of applause for our panel.